Michael, it's so good to have you here. How are you, buddy?
Better than I deserve. Better than I deserve. It's about 95 something degrees in New Orleans right now. 100% humidity. It rains every about 60 minutes, but it's the beauty of being on the third floor though. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. And shout out to all of our New Orleans peeps. Well, why don't we just get started? Excited to hear what we're going to talk about today. Let's talk a little about who you are and what you do.
that's easy. So I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and when Hurricane Katrina hit, a data center in New Orleans flooded. 300 websites and their email all went down in a heartbeat. One of my colleagues, I'm going to even give him a shout out, Bruce Burge, went and waded into the server room and pulled the hard drive with all the websites, FedExed it to me in Memphis, and I started calling these people saying, look, I have your files, I have access to your domain name, I'm from the internet, and I'm here to help. And these are, I didn't know it at the time, but these were institutions of New Orleans, major insurance companies, major restaurants. And I really didn't understand who I was calling at the time. And we rescued as many as we could. And then I moved down here and opened the actual New Orleans office of Point to Point in about 14 years ago now. So, and
So you're
we
in so you're
specialize.
in so you're in the web hosting and the web development business essentially.
Exactly. We build websites, we keep them up and running, keep them hosted. Also, we do maintenance on them. So if you have a new team member on your website, you don't have time to log in and add them to the website, we can do that for you as well too. We build everything on WordPress, so that way our clients can make those changes themselves. But a lot of times, small business owners, they just don't have time to make the changes. So our development team can handle that as well too.
Well, talk to us a little about how you got to this point. Have you always been into this sort of business? How did you get here? And maybe more specifically from a marketing standpoint, how did you get to where you are today?
That's a great question. I've always wanted to do this. When I was a senior in high school, I mean, this is 1999. I was saying I want to run a web design business in New Orleans. Like it's odd to say that, and it just kind of worked out that way. And what's the old line of about luck is when preparation and what's it called meet. Forget the exact phrase, but that's really what it was the web hosting business has changed drastically, in the last 20 years, because I registered my first domain name in 1999.
Hmm.
And back then, web hosting, it's like, what exactly is web hosting
Yeah.
versus nowadays, there's Super Bowl commercials for website hosts. It's
Yeah.
become like the cable company or the power company. It's a commodity. But just like a lot of commodities too. In New Orleans, we have a company called Entergy that manages all of our power, which may or not be better than the Texas power company in a sense. But with web hosting, you can pick a Trader Joe's versus a Walmart in a sense. And the real power from it comes explaining the difference, because you can get a cheeseburger from Burger King, or you can go to I'll even give them a shout out, or you can go to Lakeview Harbor, which is original Lakeview burger, and those burgers are going to be very different. And yeah, Lakeview Harbor's burger is going to be a little bit more, but it's a Lakeview Harbor burger, so it's a good example of fast, cheap, and good. You got to pick two and be careful which two you pick. So.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's good, and I will touch on that a little more. But we wanted to talk about the solution, which is hosting in general, because we've seen how a lot of businesses fail because they didn't have the right hosting solution in place that sits on top of their business that they can now drive traffic or build marketing around. So tell us a little about this solution hosting in general, and then more specifically the hosting that you are familiar with. Talk to us from that perspective. What is a hosting solution, and what exactly does it do?
Well, I use the analogy a lot. I was mentioning this earlier when we were talking. I use a lot of the analogy of a storage unit. You rent a storage unit. That's all you're doing with a lot of the shared hosting providers. You're just renting this space. Everything that happens inside of that space is your problem or your web designer's problem. And I've gone in kind of the direct opposite route of like, I'm going to rent you this space, but I'm also going to take care of everything inside of it in a sense. That includes, and this gets into the digital marketing realm of, you have to have that SSL certificate. You got to have that little padlock that, comes up in the address bar when you type in your website. Obviously, because it's more secure, because it's literally a security certificate. But Google uses that, as a ranking signal. So if lawyer A is SSL encrypted and lawyer B isn't, lawyer A is going to win in those search engine rankings. And especially with, I use the attorneys a lot as an example, because if you're not on page one of Google, for mobile, devices in a sense, when your potential clients are sitting in a hospital bed, you want to be there right on page one. Otherwise, you're going to get passed up by your competition. So the SSL certificate and all of that stuff is incredibly crucial. And then nowadays too, I mean, it's July 2021. The amount of attacks on websites is incredible. Nobody is too small to be hacked. I don't care if you're a mom and pop vet clinic in Metairie,
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana. Your website is susceptible to hackers, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where your web host comes in to say like, okay, it's loading quick, it's secure, and it's not infected with malware, because nobody is too small to get hacked. They're trying to install viruses on your computer via these websites, and your $10 a month hosting, they're not going to help you with that. They're going to be like, that's not our problem. You need to talk to your web designer. And that's been my whole thing. I want it all to be one phone number. That's my website people.
Yeah, awesome. And then so a lot of times people might think that hosting is for everybody, but there are different types of hosting, you've alluded to. It's kind of like apple and oranges, or pineapple and it's all fruits. But talk to us about, like, who are some of this hosting solution, particularly the one that you provide and the ones that you're familiar with. Who would be some of the most appropriate businesses or business owners, entrepreneurs for this kind of hosting? Because we're talking about hosting, not your $5 per month hosting, or not your $8 per month hosting, but the kind of hosting that you might spend a little more for. But so it rules out some people. So talk a little about that.
That's a great question too. Is I always like to say I provide a business managed service. It's a very drastic thing, versus a $5 a month blog about my cat, if I had a cat, kind of thing. Like it's not a high traffic, a high vulnerability thing versus giant insurance companies and restaurants that are just getting all kinds of publicity and all kinds of traffic and getting all kinds of attention from the other types of people we don't, in a sense, as far as the hackers go. And then also too, I mean, a perfect example was I had a client of mine down here does restaurant supply. They ran a TV commercial during a Saints game. They didn't tell me they were running this. So I'm sitting at a restaurant and I see my alert on my phone. All of a sudden, they're getting more traffic than all of my sites combined. And we were able to keep that site up and running because we're able to divert the resources in a sense. But it was kind of a shiny moment to where it's like, did you guys run a commercial or something? Like, oh yeah, we forgot to tell you. And another client of mine too, was featured in the Macy's Day Parade, the Thanksgiving parade. And we had to prep ahead of time because it's an international stream of people hitting this website all at once. And if you're not prepared for that, your website goes down, and then what? Now, people think you went out of business, so a lot can be said for really having a proactive kind of ability to divert the resources. If all of a sudden one of your marketing campaigns takes off, you got to be able to have, this even gets to like a deeper point too, where it's like digital marketing and promoting and driving traffic to your website is great. But if your roofing company can only do 3 roofs a month, you got to be prepped for that. You need to hire some more people to help you make the roofs. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. You're actually building negative, whatever, by not being able to, even like a good thing too. Like we do a lot of online ordering, like so that way instead of calling the restaurant, you can just go to the website and order the cheeseburger, and you're good to go. And because every time you call a restaurant and it just rings and rings and rings, you just hang up and you call the next one. And website hosting is a lot like that, where it's like if they try to go to your site and it's down or it's loading slow, they're going to go to the other pizza place.
Yeah.
It's so
And that's so true. So how is this solution different from what we know that's out there? I mean, everybody who runs a website today has got it is hosted somewhere. And so there's so many different hosting solutions that are out there. How do they differ in your mind?
it's interesting because it really it gets back down to fast, cheap, and good. You can get fast and cheap, but it's probably not going to be good. And every web host is going to say they're the best. It really it's I have another web hosting. I mean, let's just say he's a competitor of mine, but I love hanging out with him because I can talk shop with him, and we both always look at our phones and go, how many do you have green? I'm like, I've got 220 green. He's like, I'm at 400 green. It really just kind of comes down to the responsibility. Like the $10 a month, $5 a month hosting packages, they don't really care if your hosting is working properly. They just care that the credit card processes. Whereas I even call my hosting clients every few months just to make sure everything is okay. Hey, Ed, do you have any changes going on? Are you going to run any Super Bowl ads? Because we should probably know about that. So it really just kind of comes down to the support, the boundaries of the support too. It gets back to my hosting, my storage unit analogy when it comes to hosting. I care what's going on inside your storage unit, versus, I rent it, as long as you pay it, it's there, but I don't know what's going on inside of it. And I take the opposite approach where I want to make sure everything is good. And it gets back into digital marketing too, of like, hey, are you getting enough traffic, and that's a thing too, because, you can't have a good hosting business without analytics, Google Analytics to see how much traffic you're getting, see what pages people are clicking on. And that's where I try to kind of differentiate myself is I want you to know that you can call me anytime and, discuss, because especially Google will penalize you if your website loads too slowly, and only your web host and your web designer can fix that. And that could be a really daunting situation because you can get pushed between your web host and your web designer, and one will blame the other. And that's another thing I think I bring to the table is it's one phone number for all of it. I can't blame anybody else,
Yeah, that's interesting. And so for people who are wondering, like what exactly happens with a web host solution? Like what are some of the practical things that people literally can do by having a very good hosting solution?
Well, the whole, it gets back to my origin story, as I like to say. When Hurricane Katrina hit, that data center flooded, and all those websites went down because there was no redundant data centers. Like, you don't want to have all of your eggs in one basket, so you have to have these spread across multiple data centers, multiple cities. So no Hurricane Katrina can take me out, no earthquake or anything like that. So having the redundancy is the most important part. The other thing too that when it comes to web hosting that was a huge deal after Katrina is make sure you have good who is data. And that's important if your web hosting company explodes because that's your digital, footprint. That's your intellectual property. And if you lose that domain name, I mean, just imagine if Coca-Cola lost their domain name in a hurricane. It just can't happen. So that's one of the things I preach a lot is to make sure that you have that who is data up to date, and that's something else we kind of take care of as well too. And privacy protection. One huge problem. One of the big things we deal with a lot is there's companies out there that will send fake invoices for domain renewals, and sometimes what they're trying to do is trick accounts payable to go, oh, this looks very official, I better pay it, and they're not really paying for anything. All they're paying for is like a directory listing and whatnot. So there's a lot of like what I call third tier support that is important for a business, especially for like the big law firms and stuff like that. You got to make sure everything is running the way it does, because you can lose hundreds of dollars a year by tricking somebody, tricking somebody's accounts payable with a fake invoice. So
Yeah, that is very interesting. And when you think about when I think about integration, I'm thinking like the small business owner, and I'm thinking, what can I connect my hosting solution to? How should I go about connecting? So I know it's good for the website, but are there anything else that I can host in a hosting environment? And how can I integrate some of the other things that I might be using that I don't host, but there are tools that I use, or there are things that I use that I need to then connect to my hosting solution.
ooh, that's a tricky one. I mean, the first thing I think of is integrating things. So, like I was saying, I build everything on WordPress. I love the platform. I love being able to give my clients a username and password so they can update with press releases. They can update photos. We do a lot of work with Mardi Gras crews. So if you have an event, they can just drag and drop the photos, publish, and it's up. And the as far as integration goes, I'm a big fan of HubSpot. I don't resell it, but I just love it. I'm a user of it, and HubSpot has some great integration as far as their calendar integration, and also basically their HubSpot forms. So if you fill out this form on your website, it goes into your funnels, as they say. To I think that's the right word. But yeah, I mean, WordPress, and even the I was talking with the Mardi Gras crew Tuesday, and they want to integrate their QuickBooks, so that way you can subscribe as a member to this Mardi Gras crew, and the website using WooCommerce, will connect to their QuickBooks and process the payments. And when you start getting into hundreds of people, that starts to be a game changer when you have your billing system integrated with your website. And I can't say enough about WooCommerce and its add-ons, because the when you start taking payments online, everything is great. Like you're not opening checks, you're not scanning the checks, you're not receiving them. You're just getting an email once a day saying, "Oh, you've got 300 payments or whatever," and it yeah. So I can't say enough about the WooCommerce integration, but also too, like for your average lawyer or whatnot, the HubSpot form integration, to where somebody responds to a form, it goes into your funnel in a sense.
That's great. That's good to know. And so for those who are listening, who are interested in a hosting solution like this, what should they need to know to be able to get access to it? I know when we talked earlier, we had agreed to give listeners of the podcast an opportunity to take a look and also even benefit from some free hosting. Can we talk a little about that?
Yeah, I love giving free hosting away because we've got the resources in a sense. You can go to pointtopointcentral.com with the number two, POINT pointcentral.com. And we can use your coupon code more
Yeah, more
podcasts,
podcasts, all caps, right?
all caps. And yeah, we'll give you literally 3 months of free hosting, which is about $150 value, just to get an idea of the difference between my hosting and the Walmart hosting, as I like to say, because we're here for you in a sense. We're not just we're providing hosting and whatnot. So yeah, pointtopointcentral.com is our website, and yeah, you could use that coupon code, and also too, we provide free consultations too. So it's like, all right, I have a Squarespace, Wix, or whatever website. I'm not getting the traffic I want. Maybe I should switch over to a WordPress website, and I can kind of talk about that to you, as well too, because there's a difference. Those Wix and other free website builders don't index as well with Google, and we have an old saying here in New Orleans where the best place to hide a dead body is in New Orleans East and on page 2 of Google, because nobody goes to either of those places. Right. And so you got to have a good host. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting on page 2 or 3 of Google, and nobody goes to New Orleans East unless you're getting rid of a stolen car, as I like to say. And that sometimes really angers my my realtor clients, because they're like, I have a property in New Orleans East. I don't want you bad mouthing it, but it is what it is. So
That's interesting. I like that. And so the website again is point2point.com, right?
Point-to-point-central.com.
Point to point central, my bad. So point2pointcentral.com, and you can use the coupon code more podcast, all caps, to get a taste of the solution that Michael is talking about here. And so, Michael, I know that staying in business for years is not easy, man, and I know that you've been in it. And listeners are always curious to know, how have you done it, and what would you say has been the best thing that happened to you since then?
Well, I mean, it's topical because we met through the Goldman Sachs program, but that was easily the best thing that's happened to me since the luck I had when I acquired that hard drive. But the one thing I've taken away from this program too is that I get my clients from awareness. My websites are not cheap, but they're not the most expensive. But people come to me because they go, oh, my so and so brother-in-law said I need a website. I don't want to just Google website designer and roll the dice. I want to go with somebody that my brother-in-law recommends. That way, if I have a problem with him, I don't have to do a chargeback on my credit card. Like, no, it's a that's been the key to my success. And it's all about educating people in a sense, because you can build a website for $500, or you can build one for $8,000, and you have to kind of understand that maybe an $8,000 website is too much, or maybe it's not enough in a sense. So the one thing I've learned over the years is it's all about making really good personal connections. And I've been holding it in my hand. I'm a member of the Downtown Rotary Club of New Orleans, and this is my grandfather's Rotary coin. And it's a big part of my life, being part of that community and giving back a little bit, because it always comes back to you in a sense. So that's the advice I would give, as far as create awareness in the right circles and paths in a sense. Like, do good work for people for free sometimes, just because you need to get your name out. And that's the advice I'd give to any web designer or other potential web host customers, is you have to get out there, boots on the ground, as I always like to say. You have to be there, because we're not Burger King. We're the or some whatever local regional burger place, we're that person, because we care a little bit more than the Burger Kings in a sense. So
Nice. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with us today, Michael?
ooh I can never say enough about SSL certificates. If you go to your own website and you don't have that little padlock, you got to talk to your web host, because that should be complimentary. That should be the continent. That should be part of the continental breakfast in a sense. So make sure you have your SSL certificate. Also, Google has a test that they can just run on your website to tell you, how it's performing load wise, and Google takes that very seriously. So if you're not, loading up to Google's standards, then you might as well be shut down, And also, too, I mean, I can never go on and on about get those Google reviews. If I'm embarrassed to say I only have about 5 or 6 Google reviews, but you can go to google.com/business, get the link to basically leave you a Google review, and that is the easiest, and it's also free, so it doesn't cost you anything to say, hey man, you've been a good power washing client of mine for years. Can you go ahead and just click on this link, leave me a quick review, and it just drastically moves you up in the search engine rankings. And my favorite part is it doesn't cost a thing, because I can set up a pay-per-click budget at $1,000 a month, but that's $1,000 a month in a sense. So yeah, the Google reviews are, and it's related to hosting, but it's also I love to put my SEO hat on in a sense too. So
Nice. Well, I usually like to ask about books that or guest reads and podcasts that you listen to, and I think that's the one thing that I would ask you now. What kind of books are you reading these days, and what kind of podcasts are you listening to?
I mean, it's right here is the Traction book by Whitman, and it's an interesting book because it it's it was written for 10 to 250 employees, but all the stuff in it is still really relevant to a 1 to 7 people, kind of business like I am. The other one too is Getting Things Done by what is his name? Getting Things Done. It's all about putting things into buckets. It was David Allen. That book changed my life. I reread that book at least once a year just to kind of reaffirm my assumptions. If
Yeah.
you can't just have a to-do list. You got to have a to-do list with categories that are shared with people. Yeah, David Allen, Getting Things Done is one of my favorite. Traction with Whitman is good. Um, Podcasts though, I try to take my podcast a little light. I love Bill Burr. Shout out to Bill Burr's podcast on Monday. But the other one I really love too, and I share this kind of with my girlfriend a lot, is the Reply All podcast, which is a good one for people that they want to know a little bit more technology, but they don't want to jump in it too hard in a sense. So the Reply All uh, podcast is one of my favorites. And let's see what else. And also too, my podcast, Point to People, available on Spotify. I don't actually listen to my podcasts, but I upload them and I enjoy it. I encourage everyone to make a podcast. Yeah, those are the big ones. And yeah, I can't say enough about the Getting Things Done book by David Allen though. That one, I reread it usually about every 3 months to remind myself that everything needs to go into buckets. If I get an email, that's a certain bucket. If I get a text message, that goes into a certain bucket. But yeah, I mean, we live in the golden age of podcasts now. I mean, you could spend all day, 8 hours a day, getting educated for free, off these you know podcasts. So
Awesome. That's great, man. So we're always on the lookout for master users of solutions or tools and creators like yourself as well, to help other businesses grow, right? And so we wanted to know, do you have any recommendations of the, who should be the next guest? Who should we be talking to next on this show that we can connect with?
That's an easy one too. We talked about this earlier. Is Amy Barrios of mmsnola.com. mmsnola.
Awesome.
And she is a content writer, and we basically build websites with her. And her energy is incredible. Like it really truly inspires me and my team to build our sites the best we can. And she's an amazing person. She's worked with our local news groups, and I mean it is does video content, everything that you kind of really need. And I can't say enough about Amy. And I'll send you her information, and that way you can maybe connect with her, because she, even over Zoom meetings and stuff like that, the energy is palpable. I love her to death. So
Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much. I really appreciate you jumping in and chatting with us today. I'm certain that folks get some good takeaway from this. It won't be the last time. We'd love to check in with you in a couple of months to see how you're doing, and what else you've been up to. So thank you so much, and we'll definitely catch up soon on another episode.
awesome. All right, man. Have a great night.
You got it.